Okay, Germany have overcome China in a very scrappy group game in the Women's World Cup 1-0 in Rennes. The crowd wasn't bad especially with one of the teams not being European. The crowd was over 15,000. So that's not bad considering it's the Women's World Cup. The two games so far. I mean, the France game last night against South Korea was a sellout at the Parc des Princes, and it was a 3/4 filled stadium in Rennes. So these are not bad crowds so far. We'll have to see how Spain, South Africa, and Norway, Nigeria, what the crowds look like for those games. But this game was not the same quality as last night, I will admit that. It was a very scrappy game. The Chinese made it very difficult for the Germans to settle into the German style of rhythm and pace. And the German Football Federation has put a lot of money into the women's game. And the German women's team has repaid that investment over the years with just being one of the most dominant forces in world women's football. Alongside the US, they have been a dominant force for over 25, 30 years. They've been at the top couple of teams in the world. And there's very few teams that can unseat the Germans. The Chinese gave it a go by disrupting their flow, basically trying to tackle them out the game. I think the men's game has lost the art of tackling. The women's game, it's still alive and well. It's one of the skills I think the women are actually better at is tackling. And being prepared to get stuck in and get physical. I think the men's game could learn something from the women's game with the fact that the women are still prepared to tackle and throw themselves into challenges. The men's game could learn something at the elite level. I think that's an art that's being lost. The Germans, however, laboured, and there was a lot of mistakes in their play. Now, it's either that they've been labelled favourites, and there's a lot of young players in this group, or they're in a transition phase. Take your pick, because it's both. The Chinese, when they had the ball on the counter-attack, they fluffed their lines because they rushed the play. They couldn't settle their feet, and I think the moment got to them. But if this German side are to do what previous German sides have done and be in the final or in the semi-final or win the thing, they have to play better. But the goal by Giulia Gwinn is possibly the best goal out of the 5 goals so far that have been seen at this tournament. I'm going to say that I think it's the technique used and the way the goal is scored on a half-volley through a crowded box, nutmegging an aerial defender. Yes, one of the Chinese defenders has jumped, believing it's going to be a chipped cross to try and block, and it's nutmegged her. It's then the other 2 defenders behind the Chinese defender are split in 2 by the ball, pretty much. It goes between them like a hot knife through butter and doesn't take a deflection off either of these players, any of these players. And it beats the goalkeeper who's slightly unsighted. It is a bullet of a shot. It is a bullet of a shot. And the technique is perfect, half-volley technique. Many men in the men's game would be pretty happy with that as a goal from the edge of the box. After a poor clearance from a corner, the way that technique, it's the highlight of the game, and Gwinn is one of the youngest players in the tournament, and that is a highlight reel goal. And I do suggest that if you can find a carrier like a sports website that is a national carrier, check out the replay. It's going to be all over the internet later. I do suggest you go on Twitter, you go on YouTube, you just type in Giulia Gwinn World Cup goal, and you will find someone or a website that has posted via their YouTube channel video footage of her scoring that goal. It is a brilliant goal, a highlight, and otherwise really scrappy affair. I will say this, not the best advert for women's football, but I've seen many a men's game that has been scrappy like this, where it's been a tight, tense affair, lots of fouls, lots of breaking play, no rhythm, and we don't decry the men for playing like that in a regular league game. I've seen many a game where there's been a scrappy, poor quality affair. But the women are obviously trying to improve their quality and their level and their eliteness, and they will get there. And the German women have been for a very long time a leading light in women's football. And the German Federation has put a lot of money into the women's team and investment through the clubs as well. But the Germans need to improve if they are to go far in this tournament. The French looked pretty good last night against a very defensive Korean team that, again, were trying to tackle them off the ball. That was their technique, was to tackle, basically. If the Germans were to play the French now, let's say the French win by several goals, the German defence were giving up too many silly mistakes. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Germans respond to this poor, lacklustre performance. The Chinese, they would want to get something out of the game, a draw. They deserve something for their efforts. It's going to be interesting to see how they respond in the next 2 group games. The Germans have got that first win, though, and you can always build on that. Look what the French men did last year. A pretty average side, to be fair, with a couple of good performances in there, managed to get to a World Cup final without really having highlight reel plays, apart from a couple of goals. They weren't the most fluid side. They were a workmanlike side and they've won the tournament. So a workmanlike side can do it, but they need to improve massively if they are to actually beat the USA or the French, maybe even in the English, because they are the sides that have been setting the bar so high for so long. They have to improve massively. But there we go. I'm going to leave that there. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Place your comments below. There are 2 more games this evening. Spain-South Africa is next, kicking off in a little over 45 minutes' time as I'm recording this video. And then Norway play Nigeria. So it's going to be interesting. We'll see what the crowds are like and what the games are like. I think the Norwegians are a dark horse to watch as well. The Scandinavian countries always produce really good women's teams. They put a lot of money into women's football as well. So I'll have to see how they do. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I'll have some more videos for you very soon.